Was it Saucy? Tony and Fred are cousins and live in the big city. On vacation, they usually spend long periods at their grandparents' farm. There, they play all day long. They love to wake up early to milk the cow, help collect the chickens' eggs, collect firewood with their grandparents. But what they really like are the conversation circles they do every night around the wood stove. Their grandparents are great storytellers. The grandchildren's eyes sparkle, excited by the reports. They hear stories about the headless mule, about the Kurupura, about the werewolf, about Kuka, about the pink river dolphin, about the mermaid Aira. Ah, so many fascinating stories. One night, they began to tell the story of Saucy, a small, black, very playful boy with only one leg, who wears a red cap and who has magical powers. His favorite entertainment is doing little pranks, like tweaking the horses' manes, tying the cows' tails, chasing the chickens, changing the place of salt and sugar in the kitchen, throwing a fly in people's soup. And he does all this without anyone noticing because he has the gift of being invisible whenever necessary. Tony listened to the story with great admiration. However, Fred felt shivers just thinking that they could be being watched by Saucy. After the evening talks were over, the children went to their room. It was very windy outside. Suddenly, one of the candles goes out by itself. Fred says, "Cousin, please, don't blow out the candles." "I didn't blow out the candles. It was Saucy," said Tony, laughing. A while later, Tony was almost asleep, when they heard a soft whistle and Fred asked, "Cousin, did you hear that? Is it the wind that made that whistle?" No. It's not even that windy. It must be Saucy walking around outside," joked Tony. "Really, cousin? I am scared." Tony didn't even listen anymore, because he had already fallen asleep. Fred couldn't sleep a wink. He lay motionless on the bed. But at dawn, he was overcome by fatigue and ended up sleeping. The next morning, the boys got up and went to help with the farm routine. It was still windy there. On the way to the stable, the boys' hats were knocked off their heads by a gust of wind. Tony took advantage and joked, "Hey, Saucy, leave our hats alone." "Stop it, Tony. You know I'm getting distressed," Fred complained. Upon arriving at the stable, Fred noticed that the horses' manes were tangled. "Look at the state of the horses' manes, cousin. Could the wind cause this?" "Of course not. This can only be Saucy's work," said Tony, laughing. Later they passed a hen, followed by her newly hatched chicks and a duckling. Fred exclaimed astonished. "Really, the wind wouldn't move the eggs either. There's something wrong happening on this farm, cousin. This cannot be a coincidence." Tony laughed at Fred's fear. The children spent the day playing, Tony always making Fred more afraid. They played so much that they were late even for dinner. Already at the table, quite sleepy, Tony arrived first, who waited for Fred to get out of the shower so they could have dinner together. Suddenly, there was a wind that blew out some candles in the kitchen. Tony widened his eyes and watched Saucy putting a fly in Fred's soup and instantly disappearing. Then Fred arrived, sat down at the table and observed that there was a fly in his soup. Still astonished, Tony stammered, "It was Saucy who put that fly in your soup." This time, Fred wasn't even worried. He simply switched the plates and said to his cousin, "Ah, yes, of course it was Saucy. But this Saucy has 2 legs, doesn't wear a hat and doesn't even know how to be invisible, but he loves to play tricks on his cousins, isn't that right, Tony? Tony was silent. He didn't know what to answer, because he saw that his cousin would not believe him. Outside, a swirl of wind made a noise like a child's laugh. Was it Saucy?
Hi little friend. Did you like the story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.